Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that's hosted by a giant mess. That's me, the real cinch, Neal Lynch. I'm a former fourth-string college quarterback and mediocre middle relief pitcher with a film and media studies degree. Now I'm a single dad who loves to talk Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, TV shows, and comedy. On today's episode, we're going to be recapping the so very busy bye week for Big Blue. General Manager Joe Schoen gave a press conference, so I'll give him a reaction to that. Daniel Jones has been benched and most likely has played his last game, taken his last snap as a member of the New York Football Giants, and we'll react to that and also give my thoughts on the team going with Tommy DeVito instead of Drew Lock. The Athletic also had the QB Betrayal Index, so I thought I'd take a look at that. We'll do some comparisons between this year, last year, and 2022 to see, is this team really improving in the Daboll Schoen regime? And then we'll do a preview of the upcoming Bucs game, the Week 12 contest versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So without further ado, let's get it started up in here. I typically don't pay a lot of attention to press conferences. I think if you are working in the New York metropolitan area at a high level, you pretty much know how to talk to the press, the media. At least you think you do. You're trained because the New York media is probably considered one of the toughest, hardest on the people that they grill at the podium. I think Philadelphia might be a tougher market, but New York is up there. Reporters, there's so many different outlets, and the reporters are hounding you, grilling you up and down, left and right. They want you to make a mistake so they can get a soundbite, and they can get a clip, and they get traffic and clicks and all that great stuff. And I think going into the press conference, a lot of people were hoping that the media would stay true to form and not toss softballs at Joe Schoen and really press him to give answers. And I don't know if you picked up on it. I definitely picked up on it. Joe Schoen's voice sounded nervous and anxious and wavering. And it's because he's been trained, just like I think Daboll's probably been trained, hey, don't give them anything. I don't know if Pat Hanlon is still the head of PR with the Giants, but media communications or media relations, he's got to be saying, hey, don't give them anything. And there's also a little dicey subject that you have to address in this press conference, even though it's not officially official. You have to make sure you're saying the right things from a legal standpoint, which I didn't even think about. Overall, his press conference, I think maybe there's a sect of the Giants fandom that bought back in on him and Daboll and thought, oh, okay, yeah, he's talking a lot of sense. He's making a lot of sense. But if you are hanging your hat on the 2024 draft class, I don't know that that's enough. Ultimately, I thought I've seen enough. But in thinking about it more, I think we talked about it before, Jim Fossil as head coach. Playoffs first, year one, misses playoffs, barely misses playoffs year two. Not close to making the playoffs, although there might have been a little in the hunt action towards the end of the year in 99. 2000, Super Bowl. 2001, doesn't make playoffs, even though, we went 7-9, and there were 2 or 3 games in there that we probably could have won and gone to the playoffs. 2002, playoffs. 2003, 4-12, he's fired. Feels like Daboll's kind of Jim Fossil 2.0, but a lesser version. So I don't know that it's a 2.0. I think it's like a Jim Fossil negative 1.0. I don't know, negative 2.0. So year 4, even though I would like to see us move on, they're probably, I guess they'll get a year 4. I guess. The decisions, there have been more wrong decisions than right decisions. He opened the press conference by saying that they're going to do a self-evaluation over the bye week on the roster personnel, try to find solutions. They want to be competitive in games and find ways to finish games. And it's like, well, you've been competitive for the most part, but yeah, you don't, if you are down late, your offense is not going down and winning the game. If you are up late, your defense is not holding on the lead, securing the victory. So, how would you evaluate Daniel Jones this year? He's played some good games and there's some defense on the field at the end of the game. We got a chance to close it out. Our offense has the ball. We can go down and score, close the game out. And so he kind of avoided that, but just said we'll be evaluating. Evaluating, that's like the key word. That was the word of the day, word of the week. We're going to do a lot of evaluating. We're evaluating. How would you evaluate Brian Daboll? Always working hard. The team is staying together. Guys are competing, keeping the locker room together. We're in these games. We're 1-5 and one-score games. And, I think Bobby Skinner from Talking Giants said it, but it's if you just look at the past years, I mean, how many years I've been doing this podcast? It feels like every year, even going back 2018, 2017 was just like, hell on earth. 2018, it's like we had a bunch of games that we could have won. 2019, few games that we could have won. 2020, few games we could have won. 2021, few games we could have won. So, I mean, that's the NFL. That's the new NFL, parity. That's what they want. They want competitive games. They want close games. It's up to your coaching staff. Well, your front office to give you the personnel. Coaches take that personnel, coach them up. And especially in situations where they need coaching, in critical situations. So 1-5 in one-score games, he's saying is after that's like not a good thing, but is like a saving grace. Like, we're close. But it's like, yeah, you got to win those. Like you were winning those in 2022. You didn't win them in 2023. You're not winning them in 2024. And the other thing about 2022 that I kind of forgot, and I think we forgot as a fan base, is like we swept the AFC South, possibly the worst division in football. So 4 of our 9 wins, almost half our wins came against the AFC South. We were not good within our own division. I want to say we were 2-3-1 or 1. I think we were 1-4-1. We tied the Commanders. We beat the Commanders. I believe we were swept by the Eagles badly twice and swept by the Cowboys twice. So yeah, I think we were 1-4-1 in 2022 again. So, I mean, again, if we're talking about should they get another year, dude, he stinks in the division. At least Joe Judge is winning in the division. We almost went to the playoffs with a 6-10 record because we were beating our divisional opponents. Yeah. So Shane's like, we got to find a way to get over the hump and make plays at critical times of the game. No shit. Whether it's red zone or third down, getting off the field on defense, tackling on punt coverage, not allowing a punt return for a touchdown. I mean, yeah, it's tough. And we'll do a quick look comparison of like this year, the first 10 games of this year versus the first 10 games of last year versus the first 10 games of 2022, just to see from a team stat level how they compare. But, last in the league in the red zone. Who could have helped us out in the red zone? Sterling Shepard, who's now doing well with the Bucs. We're moving the ball. We're getting down there. And yeah, that's true. I think we run like we're in the top 6 or 7 league wide in terms of plays per drive and yards per drive, but 30th in points per drive. So, you've had a kicker situation. So you had a lot of missed field goals there, or you couldn't attempt field goals because all the kickers were hurt. So if you have a healthy kicker, maybe you're not 30th or 32nd in points per game or points per drive. Maybe you're 25th. He says that we believe we have the players in the building to do it. It's execution, a drop, a fumble. Got to play a clean game with complementary football, which, yeah, I'm all for that. But what's weird is how many games have we recapped where it's like every category, you look at the team stats comparison after each game, and it's like we're like winning almost the majority of those metrics, those stats, we are outperforming the other team. It's except points. That's it. Just score points. It's like the most important metric, and we can't do it. Again, I think that's a coaching thing. I really do. It's like, how come we were so good in red zone percentage in 2022, which I think Shane mentioned, we were like 5th or 7th in red zone percentage. We were scoring like 63% of the time in the red zone. And now we're dead last. Like Kafka was the play caller in 2022. Interesting. And now Daboll's the play caller. Also interesting. They asked him about Daniel's contract and injury guarantee. And this is where at the time when I listened to it and watched it, and it was like, when he keeps saying it's a football decision, this is such a weird battle that the media has with the GM and the coach saying it's a football decision. We're evaluating it's a football decision. It's not based on the contract. And I'm thinking, what does it matter? And I didn't realize until I listened to the Giants Believe podcast with Bob Papa and Carl Banks. Bob Papa was like, well, if Shane comes out and says, yeah, it's a business decision, we don't want to have to pay out $23 million if he gets injured and can't play anymore. Like if he said that, then the union comes and files a grievance and there's all kinds of red tape and shit and fines and whatever. So it's like, yeah, you're forced to say it's a football decision. God bless the media. How do you see Daniel Jones specifically his long-term future with the franchise? We're focused on 2024 and how we can get better in these final 7 games. We have 19 of 22 starters are under contract for next year, 41 players on the 53-man roster. We have a young nucleus of players, some veterans that are going to be together. We're in a position where we have some continuity as this team grows together. Aww. We're changing culture. We got to change the culture and expect to win. You don't want it to be here we go again. That's a mindset that we're still trying to develop, which yeah. Learn how to win games. How many games do you need to learn how to win? I don't know, man. It just feels like you can use that excuse every friggin' year. And I forget who said it. Maybe it was Jordan Renan on Talking Giants. He was saying like, interesting that when you talk to most personnel guys, they're like, well, you need to give them 3 years before you make a decision on that. But yet the 2024 class, that's a winner based off of 10 games. And that's enough through 10 games. Like, what if they shit the bed the rest of the season? This is, as Shane pointed out, like the college football, they play like 10, 11 games. NFL, they play 17. So they got like 6 or 7 more games that they got to go through into January. So far, so good with the 2024 class, but like 2022 class, and maybe Kayvon, I think Kayvon's supposed to be back for this Buccaneers game. Maybe he does come back and puts on a show and finishes out strong. And then you can at least say, well, at least we got one guy from the 2022 class. And Evan Neal is I believe Evan Neal is going to get another start at right tackle. So if he plays another good game, it's like, all right. Now, do you want your top 2 top 10 picks to play okay? I think you want a little bit more than that, but at least they're not hopefully they're not trending towards busts. I keep harping on the draft, but I just looked at approximate value, of all our draftees, all our drafted players. And the last good one that's high up on the list is Saquon. He gone. Before that, it was Odell, traded. Before that, it was EP, 2010 draft class. I mean, I know we want to give Shane shit. We want to give Edelman shit, and they deserve it. But Jerry Reese, my God. 2011, nobody. 2012, nobody. 2013, Hankins, Pugh, maybe. 2014, OBJ. That's literally it from 2014. 2015, Landon Collins, who was an All-Pro, which is great. 2016, Shep was your best player. Never made a Pro Bowl, never an All-Pro. 2017, I think Evan Engram and Dalvin Tomlinson were your top two players. Evan Engram makes the Pro Bowl, even though why? We're still not sure why. And then Dalvin Tomlinson, like, not re-signed. 2018 Saquon, you know? Andrew Thomas, as much as everyone, we love how he plays and he plays well and he always gets high grades. I mean, the injury thing, dude, the injury thing is driving us nuts. You can't keep getting injured for extended, lengthy periods of times. And that's why they have to focus on solidifying the tackle position. They have to do it. They cannot sit back and say, we Gucci at the O-line position because they have neglected it severely. At least, I mean, like, to not draft anyone in this year's class was kind of crazy. And to only pick up a center last year is kind of crazy. Like, you know, we're saying, like, a lot of people are saying, like, oh, Shane fixed the offensive line. And it's like they keep using that PFF stat or quote saying that they're the most improved. And it's like, yeah, because we had a dog shit offensive line last year. Second most sacks in NFL history. You play average, and yeah, that's the most improved. You went from 32 to 16. Yeah, it's a pretty good improvement. Does that mean it's good? No, it means it's like average. And we said it, we need to, you know, at least give us an average offensive line to give your quarterback a chance. And they did, and the quarterback didn't take advantage of it. So now we have to move on from the quarterback, which we'll get to. You know, he was asked, he said, and he talked about the first two drafts, 2022 and 2023. I like the guys in our first two drafts. We needed players. There were 5 healthy offensive linemen on the roster at the time. So, you know, there were players or situations you were trying to fill out the roster where it was a depth player. So it's like, oh, cool. We got a bunch of depth players in 2022 that are not starters. Ugh, yuck. We drafted like 11 dudes. 11 dudes. And I think, I don't even know if I have it here. Do I? We drafted 11 dudes. And I think like, was it Kayvon, Evan Neal, Wandale, Belly, Belton, Micah? I guess half are still on the team. Yikes. But we needed players. Cool. Slot, I guess. I don't know. Wandale is a good slot receiver. He's top 10 in receptions in the league. Dude, it's like really grasping at straws. It just feel, and I understand, like, and that's why it's like I don't take a lot of stock in press conferences. I don't get excited for them. I don't like they have to spout positivity and they grasp onto these little nuggets and seeds that will make the fan base think, oh, yeah. But like, yeah, we talked about it. Wandale's top 10 in receptions in the league, and he's like 40 or 50th in receiving yards. You know, Shane says he believes in our process and he believes in the research that we do. And so the reporter asked, as an outsider who's not in the building, why should the fan base believe in the process, though? Because the results obviously aren't what anyone wants. And he says, building something, sometimes it hurts and it's painful and it's hard to go through, but we're going in the right direction. Did you change your approach after you went to the playoffs and won a playoff game in 2022? Where the rebuild is now viewed differently because of the moves you made coming off of year one versus having the last 2 years as your first 2 years. And I think it was Art Stapleton. Shane said, yeah, there's probably some truth to that. Coming off a winning season, and some of the issues were maybe masked or you blinded a little bit by the success. Again, that's a first year GM shit. And that's something that we mentioned in the past that the Giants as an organization have a tendency to do. That's why they never repeat or three-peat or anything like that. The Chiefs, it's like Patriots, Niners, Cowboys, Steelers, like those organizations and franchises repeat because they like, all right, we have a winning formula. We want to keep winning. We don't just say, we won, thank God. And it's like, we don't have to address the quarterback position. And we'll get into, like, you look at the 2022 stats and it's like, kind of amazing we made the playoffs. It's kind of amazing. he said he tried to accelerate the rebuild based off the Daniel Jones extension, the way the contract was structured. You're better in your third or fourth year. There are some parts of the process when I evaluated it maybe were overlooked. Should have done a better job in the evaluation process or player procurement process. And that's part of growth. He admits he made some mistakes and decisions he wish he had back. He likes the direction we're going, likes the team, likes the strategy, likes the groups that help me in research and strategy, the scouting department. We've got a good coaching staff. I don't know, man. I don't really know. I don't know. You're 2-8. Just lost the worst team in the goddamn league. What do you like about the team? What do you like about the strategy? What about the direction makes you like it? There's been a lot of talk about him alienating players and how, Dexter Lawrence coming out and about the DJ benching, being against it. The Nick McLeod cut, not re-signing Saquon or Xavier, stuff like that. And like, people are suspecting that he's not well liked in the locker room. And it's like, again, Bob Papa on the Believe podcast was saying like George Young was hated by the Giants in the locker room. Yet the players that George Young selected ended up winning and winning and winning and winning and winning. But they hated George Young with a passion. I think I brought this up last week. It's not a popularity contest, bro. You should not take the job if you're worried about being liked or respected in the locker room. I guess, yeah, it would go a long way. I guess if everyone liked you, but you're not gonna be well liked in the locker room. And I wouldn't give a shit about that. Turn into like a Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon situation. Like whatever, like, paper cutout where they strip off your clothing. I don't fucking know, dude. Like, I just, So, he says that's the nature of the beast. Not everybody's going to agree with everything I do. And, there's going to be a lot of people that disagree and agree. So it's the nature of the business. You got to get comfortable with making a decision. That was early on in this. That was hard to do when you have to make those difficult decisions. You always think about the locker room. You think about the impact down there. And you also want to do what's best for the organization. So you take all that into account. I'm close to these guys too. I'm close to the players. And it stinks sometimes when you have to cut them. I don't want to do that. And they have lives and families, blah, 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 blah. Will you be back next year? I communicate with ownership all the time. We have a really good relationship with ownership. Communicate constantly. There's confidence in the plan and where we're heading. God damn. I would love at some point down the road to see what that fucking plan is. Because it doesn't seem like they have one. I don't know that you really have one. There's a question about Deonte Banks. Guys have obviously invested a lot in him and trusted him to be your number one cornerback. Been a lot of effort concerns. How do you look at him as a piece moving forward? Yeah, there was one effort question on, the play against Philadelphia. And I'm like, and then he remembers, no, there was a second play, and no, there's a third play and a fourth and a sixth. He just like, he's a young player, played very well a year ago. We changed the scheme. We're the youngest defense in the league, not just Tay. We're not giving up on Tay. He's got the physical traits, shown the ability to match top receivers on other teams, tough position to play. He's been in really good position on some of them, so we're not going to give up on him. He works hard. He wants it, and I still believe he's got a bright future. Yeah. And actually, I guess it was Bobby Skinner from Talking Giants was saying that if you look at the numbers, there hasn't been this major regression from Deonte Banks. And in some respects, he might be playing better than he did last year. At the same time, it doesn't feel like, but it's not like we would, I think everyone was in agreement that he had a promising rookie season. Promising is not the same as great or good. It's just like, oh, we got something here. But that it's like the same as, I don't know. I feel like this year, the errors and mistakes are way more glaring than they were last year. Like you would expect some of the mistakes and errors that he's made, like all of the errors and mistakes that he's made that are like in the spotlight, huge, critical, crucial plays, touchdowns, basically Points, dude. You would expect what those things happening his rookie season, and instead they're happening this season. So that's what, if you flip-flopped it, I think people would feel better. Like if he started off his rookie season like this, you'd be like, oh, friggin' rookie. Hope he gets better. And then you have you could have the 2023 season this season and you'd feel a lot better about it. But it feels like a regression, even though the numbers might say otherwise, that it's not a total regression or a huge regression. He was asked about Russell Wilson, something that we've talked about a lot. And he gave a really kind of weird answer. That free agency is out of your control. That's the takeaway I got from that long-winded answer. You go through the process. You do what you do. If it's a good fit, then sometimes they come. If they're not, you can't make them. So Russell Wilson met with the Giants. Like if he didn't have any interest in the Giants, he wouldn't have met with them. So what happened in that meeting? What did you say in that meeting that turned off Russell Wilson? Because I don't know that it's not that entirely different from what happened in Pittsburgh, right? Justin Fields, okay, has not been to the playoffs and won a playoff game. Daniel Jones has. Justin Fields not on a huge contract where the team feels obligated to play him. Daniel Jones does. But those are like known things. Like Russell Wilson has to know that going into that. So what did Russell want to hear, and what did the Giants tell him? Hey, Daniel's the starter when healthy. Or did they say, we need to have some competition with Daniel, and we want you to give him some competition, and if you went out, you went out. I just and we'll talk more about Drew Lock when we get to the Daniel Jones mentioning, but he didn't want to talk about, the plan for 2025, Project 2025, some are calling it. He just wouldn't get into that. He did eventually have to address the fact that their possibility of bringing in a young quarterback. And he said, depends on the player is. You can look around the league where that's happened based on where, different timelines. Look at Houston. They dropped the rookie quarterback into that roster and he had success rookie season. Going to be growing pains with any position. Yeah. The starting 5 offensive linemen played just over 400 snaps together. That made a difference. Did a really good job when everybody was healthy. So, that's what we've been harping on for so long. It's like Andrew Thomas goes down, you have like 0 chance of winning. He's in the lineup, you have 40% chance of winning. It's like, I don't know. You still have to don't, just because you have the most improved offensive line doesn't mean you stop working on it. Van Roten, GVR, is a free agent. So guard is an area that you need to address. You really do need to draft another guard. You really do need to draft another tackle. Do not, and I think we're coming up on it. So I'm going to save it for then. But he talked about his trade philosophy. Trade philosophies is the same as it's been in the past. We listen if people call. And if there's any players that we catch word of that may be available around the league and it makes sense for our roster, then we're going to go look at it. So no different than it was in the past. And it's like, I don't know, man. If you catch word, if someone calls, I don't know, dude. I released a video, I think it was from a couple episodes back, but it was right after the trade deadline. So yeah, maybe it was last episode where, we didn't do anything at the trade deadline, and we didn't do anything at the 2023 trade deadline other than Leonard Williams. I think we traded away. But why didn't you trade Saquon? Why didn't you trade Xavier? 2-8. 2-8. Both going to be free agents. Both want big money. You've already shown that you can't sign Saquon to a big contract. Failed negotiations left and right. Doesn't look like it's going to get done. Xavier, you didn't even, you're way off from Xavier. You didn't trade them. We need players, right? That was what we need. We need players. So I disagree with that approach and that strategy. It's like, let's be a little more aggressive there. I like to see you be a little more aggressive in selling and getting something. Closing the gap within the division has been a talking point over the last couple of years. How would you assess where you guys stand currently with that? Yeah, the divisional record, man. I said it in another video. Like, you have my vote of confidence when you start beating the Eagles and the Cowboys. You can start beating the Eagles and Cowboys, or at least splitting with them. Let's start splitting with them. Let's win at home and put up a fight on the road. Let's when you start doing that, then you're going in the right direction. But when you're getting blown out at home by the Eagles yet again, and you can't win against a Cowboys team that is just decomposing in front of our eyes. And we like I said, 2022, 1-4-1, 2023. Did we beat Washington twice? 2-4 or 1-5? I think we might have been 1-5. No, we beat them twice. So we're 2-4. And now you can't beat the Commanders anymore. And if you lose to the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day, I think we know. I mean, that's got to be. You can't beat a fledgling Cowboys team without Dak Prescott, without any kind of real rushing attack, with a defense that is poor. So that's a long lead up to this. This is the part of the. I don't think I need to even go over the rest of the press conference. I mean, they talk about Evan Neal. Yeah, I don't know. There wasn't much. The part where I lost it was this next part. One of the roster decisions that this is from the Reporter now. One of the roster decisions that's talked about often in the offseason plan was to go into this season with Josh Ezeudu as your backup left tackle, knowing Andrew Thomas has an injury history. Is that a decision you would like to have redone in hindsight? And why did you feel confident in that when the plug was pulled on Josh Ezeudu after one start? This answer right here, Joe Schoen's answer to that fucking question, is all the reason that I need to move on from him and Brian Daboll after this year. This question. I've given a lot of reasons for and against keeping him, moving on. I'm leaning towards moving on, and this solidified it for me. We don't need to see another season of this crap. This is the quote from Schoen. Yeah, I think going into the season, we didn't know Evan Neal wasn't going to be available. And we knew Illuminor has versatility. He's played 4 spots on the offensive line, so that wasn't necessarily the plan. We knew Illuminor could play either or, and it would give you optionality. If Evan Neal was healthy, and unfortunately he wasn't healthy till the start of the year and missed the majority of camp, so we knew we had options. Josh Ezeudu is in there working hard. Everyone's working hard, dude. Carm's a really good coach, has confidence in Jermaine, and we're going to continue to develop Josh. He's got position flexibility at guard and tackle. No, he doesn't, which is important for this league. Josh started off a little slow in the Philadelphia game, and then I thought he settled in well. And, we're going to keep working with him and, see how it continues to progress under Carm, offensive line coach. That made me lose my shit. That response right there. And I understand he probably doesn't, he's not, I don't know that it's like half truths in there, because that decision right there is enough for me to say, no, dude, no more review, please. You didn't know that Evan Neal wouldn't be available. When did you know that Evan Neal wouldn't be available? What did you do when you found out that Evan Neal wouldn't be available? Jermaine Illuminor has versatility and there's some optionality there. Oh, really? Then why did it take you 3 fucking games to move him to left tackle? That's a question that wasn't asked. You said that Illuminor has versatility and optionality, gives you the best option. Why didn't you move him from right tackle to left tackle? Why did it take you 10 games to put Evan Neal in the lineup? Why did you think that old Mother Hubbard off the practice squad would be a good left tackle instead of Illuminor or Evan Neal? That the offensive line, my God, if I'm ever a general manager, which I will never be, but if I ever get lucky enough to be in that position, the first number one and number two priorities, not the quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. Protect the quarterback, sack the quarterback. Protect the quarterback, sack the quarterback. Literally 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. That drove me nuts. And you keep, and I'm seeing it. You keep signing tackles out the practice squad. So this is where I get lost in the sauce, my friends. You saw how 2023 panned out. Offensive line, dear God, has to be your number one priority. Yes, wide receiver 1 would be nice to help out Daniel. Offensive line had to be a priority. With it being a priority, you didn't draft any offensive linemen. You went out and signed free agents. Runyon, GVR, like last minute. They had to sign GVR last minute. And I mean, that's what he's referring to there is Evan Neal. They didn't know that he wouldn't be able to start until late in camp. They go out and sign GVR. So I get it. But like Evan Neal was suiting up. So he's suiting up and he's not 100%. And he's like an emergency tackle situation. I lost it after I heard that response. It was just like, I know shit happens, unexpected stuff happens, but you were so thin. We've been so thin at offensive line for so long, and I understand that that's kind of an issue league wide. I get it, but not drafting anyone in 2024 and only drafting a center in 2023. When it's not like Josh Ezeudu came in rookie year and was starting. He was platooning with Ben Bredeson and got hurt. He was platooning with Ben Bredeson, who then won the job in 2023. And Ezeudu gets hurt again. He gets hurt, and then blah, blah, blah. It's just like you have to take the L on Ezeudu. To say that Ezeudu has the swing, he's not, dude. He's not. Like, yeah, I guess you can line him up at tackle and he won't fall on his face. Is that flexibility? Because he's now a versatile guard tackle because he doesn't, I don't know. I don't see it, but we'll continue to work with him and he's working hard. But I think you have got to go out and get a tackle in the draft and in free agency. You have to double down on that shit. And it's okay to carry Evan Neal, Illuminor, Andrew Thomas, a free agent tackle, and a drafted tackle. That's okay to do that because remember you said Illuminor has versatility, so you can move him into guard. And then you said Evan Neal. Everyone and their mother thinks that Evan Neal is going to move from tackle to guard. I mean, we were talking about it this year, doing that, and they didn't do it. And now he's at right tackle. But like, let's see what he got. Hey, let's just see what happens if we put him at guard. Fuck it. So you have to draft a tackle and you have to sign a tackle on free agency. Has to be 2 of your top priorities. Has to be. So that to me is like, I don't need to. I think that's when I was like, yep, I'm done with Joe Schoen. And I guess a lot of people were back in on him after that press conference, but Evan Neal's gotten a lot of attention. He's your second draft pick, one of the first rounders that it's been hard for you to strike that balanced idea. If he gets in there and plays well, looks better for you in the front office and obviously for the team. But if he doesn't play, that's a strike against your first draft. Here's how important is that one specific to what you guys are trying to build here as a foundation. It's important. Again, a premium pick like that, you always want to bat 1,000, and he's been injured. We're looking forward with him and trying to build off the last game. So yeah, it's important that he could come in and contribute for us. Again, just help us with what's looking for, whoever the best 5 are out right now, blah, 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 blah. I'm rooting for Evan. He's done everything the right way since he's been back on the grass, and he paid off the other night. He played well. It's like nobody's going to be harder on the decision-making process or on me than me. That's what keeps you up at night. You're always evaluating your decision making, what went right in the process, what went wrong. Can't put it back. You have a bad game plan one week, you can go get it the next week. Like for us, these decisions aren't quick fixes and they can be impactful either way. So a lot of confidence in my staff and our process and where we're heading decision wise. Yeah. Harping on the 2-8 record. But this last quote is what prompted me to do the comparison between the 3 seasons of their regime from a team, like that team stat level. He says, I do see progress, right? Progress. That's what we're looking at. Progress and improvement. Is the team progressing and improving overall? And we're better in different areas. We're better in a lot of areas. Got to figure out how to finish games or not getting blown out in those games. We have to develop the mentality that we're going to win, close out those games. And that's what going to look to do the last 7 games of the season. So, yeah. Okay. So we'll get to that after these next 2 segments, but fucking A, dude. I don't think I don't see how anyone can be back in on this regime after that press conference. It's just like we have a pretty good bullshit detector in this area, this region of the world. You can pretty much they're working hard. It's like, But if you're making mistakes, how are you? Are you learning from the mistakes, or you keep making the same mistakes? It feels like you keep making the same mistakes. Anyway, Daniel Jones, the Daniel Jones regime, the Daniel Jones era is officially over. Not officially, unofficially over. The day he gets cut, it'll be officially over. The probability is it's over. Benched after that, probably I think it was his worst game of the season, minus the Eagles game probably. So he's benched. I think everyone and their mother saw this coming. 24, 44, and 1 when he started. 3-13 since his extension. Completed a little over 63% of his passes for more than 2,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. I don't. The people there's this one guy on Twitter. He keeps saying after every game, only 7 games left in the Daniel Jones era, only 6 games left in the Daniel Jones era, and it's this guy coming in and celebrating, everyone going nuts, and it's just I'm not one of those people. If you remember when DJ tore his ACL in November of 2023, before my birthday, I think I put out in that next episode, I said, people are acting like that's the end of his career and we need to move on from him. And I supported him and I believed in him. And I thought that he could come back and get back to a good level. Just like I thought, I forget who said it. It might have even been Joe Judge, but he said it when Saquon tore his ACL in 2020. In 2020, he said it's going to be a hell of a comeback story. Yeah, kind of was. Not really. It's not for us, at least. For the Eagles, it is. And maybe that's going to be the case with DJ too. It's just he's been written off and he's going to go somewhere and he's going to make us look like fools. But it was a move that had to be made from a business standpoint. And it was from a purely business standpoint, because odds are, yeah, he does give us the best chance to win. But it's that injury guaranteed, dude. No thanks. I don't pay $23 million knowing this guy has an injury history. Why the hell is that in the contract? Why is that in the contract? I think the neck thing really messed with him. I think when he first injured the neck in 2021, that really threw a crimp into the way he played. And ultimately, why it didn't affect him as much in 2022 and it did in 2023, I'll never know. I didn't like the pick. A lot of people didn't like the pick in 2019. It was a reach. He wasn't projected to go in the top 10. We picked him at 6, I think, or something like that. boos rained down at the draft party hosted by the Giants at MetLife Stadium. But then again, Phil Simms was booed when we picked him in 1979. Phil Simms was hated, called Prince Valiant or something like that, for the first 5-6 years. Like, pretty much detested. I think like maybe the tides kind of turned in 84, but like Big Blue VCR keeps, rolling out that clip every year of fans talking shit about Phil Simms in 85. I think it might have been the 85 playoff game, wild card game against the Niners. And there's like man on the street interviews with New Yorkers, and they're like, he sucks. I hope he and his family die in a fire. It's just like, okay. So, that's why I don't know. I thought that maybe, I wanted Dwayne Haskins in that draft. So, I mean, like, what do I know? Maybe things would have been different if he were drafted by the Giants and not Washington, but he'd still be alive. So yeah, it was a reach. He was 17-19 at Duke. And there was a clip going around on Twitter, that was, I think it was Todd McShay's reaction. It was a draft expert's reaction to the Giants taking Jones at 6. And he's like, I don't know. The Giants fans, I don't know if they're mad, but they're definitely disappointed. And then he rattled off all the things, all the cons and negatives about Daniel Jones. And it's wild watching it now. What is it, 6 years later? And it's like, oh yeah, every single one of those is true. It's still happening. It's still happening. So, man, that I was down at a bachelor party in Tampa when he had his first start in 2019, end of September-ish or mid-September. And we were at it was the day I think it was the day I was supposed to leave. I had a night flight at night. And I was, so we were getting drinks at the tiki bar. We were down in not Tampa, but Clearwater, I think, at a tiki bar at the hotel, drinking and watching the game. And, when Matt Gay, the Bucs kicker, missed that kick and we won, I went nuts. But it was it just felt like, oh, we got him. We got a guy. And sadly, that was one of his, we wouldn't see much more of that. It was that was one of his top 3 games, if not top 2. You might want to say the Saints game where he threw 420 some odd yards and 4 touchdowns. That was probably his best one. I'm going to take a look real quick up and yeah, I mean, the Tampa game, we win 32-31. He was 22, just not that old, 22 years old, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 112.7 rating. So it does look like he's had better games over the course of his career, by QB rating. The 2022 opener where we beat Tennessee by 1, game that we could have very easily lost. 119.7 QB rating in the November loss to the Commanders. 121.7 QB rating versus the Jets in a 34-27 loss. 124.2 QB rating against the Lions, a 31-26 loss. Again, those two are 2019. This is from the 2022 season, the New Year's Day game against the Colts, a team that fucking sucked. And the Lions in 2019 weren't great. The Jets in 2019 weren't great. This year's Commanders are good offensively. Defensively, I think there's still some issues there. Tennessee, that was the year that Vrabel got fired. And Tampa in 2019, a team that they didn't go to the playoffs, and they ended up getting Brady the next year. 132.1 QB rating against Washington. That was the 41-35 win towards the end of 2019, where everyone was like, but we're supposed to be tanking and we need to get Chase Young. Chase Young. We think I mean, like I'm glad we got Andrew Thomas, but it's looking like we need to start thinking about plan B and C for Andrew Thomas. So I'd much rather have Andrew Thomas than Chase Young, and then the Houston game, 153.3 QB rating, which is pretty much perfect, but it was like, and we won, but it was 13 of 17 for 197 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, and like you look at all of his like worst QB ratings, it's all 2023 and 2024. It's like 2 games from his rookie season, 1 or 2 games from 2020 and 2021, but majority of it is 2023 and 2024. Oh, so 5 touchdowns in that. 5 touchdowns he threw against Washington in 2019, December 2019. 4 touchdowns he threw against the Jets in 2019. 4 touchdowns he threw against Detroit in 2019. So he has not thrown, forget about 4 or 5 touchdowns. He has not thrown 3 or more touchdowns since December of 2019. And people are upset that there are still people that are upset about the benching. Dexter Lawrence is upset about the benching and is saying he's the best quarterback we have, which is that's kind of facts. Yeah, I get that. But you can't defend his play anymore, man. I mean, you just can't. Team point second half comeback in that game against Tampa in his rookie season. Threw for 2 touchdowns, rushed for 2, including the game winner with 1:16 left. You know, that's something that I don't know that we've seen that since that game. His first start in the goddamn league. He threw 24 touchdown passes his rookie season. 34% of his career passing touchdowns came in those 12 starts. That's not good, okay? He did have an NFL high 19 fumbles as a rookie. Turnovers were an issue. And then, you know, we talked about that Thursday night game against the Eagles in 2020, where he has the 88-yard run, trips and falls. I think this is Dan Duggan saying it was a flicker of promise, but ultimately a disappointing result, which, again, as Big Blue VCR said, encapsulates the Daniel Jones experience and tenure with the Giants. Art Stapleton said, I think in 6 years, I wrote the Giants had their franchise quarterback and Daniel Jones on 4 different occasions. That first start against Tampa in 2019, the Saints game in 2021, where he threw for over 400 yards, the New Year's Day game against the Colts, and then the Vikings playoff game. When Jones was at his best, he was good enough to tease you that something greater was on the horizon. Yeah, what a tease, man. It doesn't compute. It's like, wait, that's the same guy that just tore apart the Saints? But it's like he can't do it for a full game. Like even in that Saints game, we were down big, like 20 some odd 18 points or something like that. Cardinals game, there was someone who posted, you know, the highlights of the Cardinals game. That was all second half. Saints was like all fourth quarter-ish, third quarter, fourth quarter-ish. So like he's never really put together a full complete game where you say, oh, that's a quarterback that can win us, you know, playoff games and win us games. 2022, we were winning not because of Daniel Jones. Majority of the games we won. It was like we had a crazy good running game. And then we can exploit defenses based on the fact that our run was so proficient. We could then exploit defenses with play action. And play action was like huge for us in 2022. And even the play action wasn't like deep shots or shit like that. Play action, for the most part, was just like dump to Belly, dump to James, dump to whoever. So declining the 5th year on him for 2023 was a mistake. The 5th year option would have locked Jones in at $22.4 million for 2023. And then we are free and clear in 2024 once he misses the entirety of the season yet again. I mean, you know, if we ever do dabble into like multiverse, if we ever get into that, like alternate realities, multiverse, I would love to have seen what would have happened if we're like, yeah, we'll do the 5th year option for 2023. And then, you know, obviously he gets hurt and it's like, what would you have done then? Franchise tag? I don't know, for 2024. Rather than giving in to Barkley with a contract worth roughly $25 million guaranteed, Schoen wound up guaranteeing $82 million to Daniel Jones. So whether or not we trade him or cut him, we'll be eating $22.2 million in dead money. Now, there's a post-June 1st number that's even more attractive than the $22 million, but we're not going to get to it, I don't think. Or maybe that is the number. I forgot. There's a pre-June 1st number and a post-June 1st number. And the post-June 1st number obviously is lower. But they've shown in the past that they have no patience for that shit. Like Kenny Golladay was gone right as soon as they could. So yeah, the injury guarantee we kept talking about, $23 million. If he suffered a major injury that will prevent him from passing a physical in mid-March, the Giants will be on the hook for $12 million. Another $11 million would become guaranteed at the start of next season. The savings from cutting Jones this offseason would be wiped out if the injury guarantee was triggered. So, obviously not a football decision. It's a business decision. Everyone gets that. 29 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in 35 career home games, compared to 41 touchdowns and 17 interceptions in 35 career road games. Whoa. So that, again, makes me believe that he's going to go somewhere else and play well. It's just MetLife. Something happens when he steps onto the field. Is like a invisible force field where it just like sucks all the powers out of him. The failures weren't all Jones' fault, but also he wasn't able to overcome the circumstances around him. And that's, I was thinking about it again. I was like, this is what I do. I lay in bed and I think about the Giants. It's awful. It's pathetic. But it was like the number of times that Eli had to put the game on his back, the team on his back, the game on his shoulders. And, he didn't come through 100% of the time, but he came through more times than he didn't. Specifically the first half of his career. For sure. And then the second half, it was, that was great. But we always talk about how hardworking Daniel Jones is and how tough he is. I don't know. I guess maybe it ended up being a psychological thing with him where it's, if he's so smart, why does it take him so long to process? Slow eyes, slow this, slow that. Why is it? But he's a fast guy. It's like, he can run fast. He just can't process defenses fast. After the 2021 season, John Mara said, we've done everything possible to screw this kid up. Coaching changes, perennially poor offensive line, lack of playmakers. Yeah, we did. And yet it still looked like he was coming out of it in 2022. But what's weird is, I don't know. I guess in the evaluation process with him, they said, well, look at what he did. I don't know. The stats, when Saquon and Daniel Jones and Andrew Thomas are all starting and healthy, the record obviously is much better than when 2 or 3 of them are healthy, or 1 of 3 of them, or 0 or 3 of them healthy. When one of them is missing, or one or more of them is missing, we just don't win games. So how did that not factor into the decision making that, like, okay, these 3 guys are really important, but we're going to let one walk. We're not going to get insurance for one guy, and we're not going to get insurance for the other guy. I think I have it down here somewhere. I know maybe I already talked about it last episode, but it's like, Dan Duggan wrote on Twitter, so we're sure about Schoen and Daboll's QB evaluations. They gave Daniel Jones a $160 million contract and benched him after 16 terrible starts. They gave Drew Lock $5 million to be the backup and then leapfrogged him when they benched Jones. That's right. Our number 2 is not going to be our number 1. Our number 1 is going to be our number 3. Our number 2 stays the number 2. Our number 3 becomes the number 1. Tommy DeVito is the starter. Oh, I mean, you want to build a case against Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen? There is like overwhelming. There's so many exhibits on the move on side. So many exhibits and examples of like wrong decisions and poor choices. And listen, I'm the king of poor choices, the prince of poor choices. You're looking at him, you're listening to him. I am in the position I'm in right now, basically rock bottom because of like all the awful decisions I've made in life. So if anyone knows about bad decisions, it's me. I know how to spot them. Do you think I would be better at making decisions or making good decisions? And I just haven't. And so maybe that's a knock against me. The decision to move on from Schoen and Daboll, maybe that's a bad decision because I'm the king of bad decisions. But to me, they have made a lot of bad decisions, more bad decisions than good decisions. And if your good decisions are the 2024 draft class, and it's not much like extending Dexter, okay, extending AT, okay. Most improved offensive line, all right. I saw someone tweet like the defensive line leads the league in sacks, and I'm like, the defensive line also is accountable and responsible for us having the worst defensive rushing defense. Like we're pretty much last in the league in rushing defense. Rushing yards allowed, yards per carry, blah blah. So I just but my point here is that it pisses me off about not getting insurance for Andrew Thomas and not having a plan going in the offseason, knowing that he has an injury history. That tweet by Dan Duggan says it all. You could have got Russell Wilson for 1.5. You could have got Jameis Winston for like 4. You signed Drew Lock for $5 million, and he can't even be the starter when Daniel Jones is benched. You go to Tommy DeVito. That is a huge indictment and condemnation of both Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. You can't tell me that Brian Daboll doesn't have any input. I think they talked about it in Hard Knocks, and they made that like this. And this is the other thing. And Mark, there's that clip of Mark Schlereth going around where he's saying the Giants franchise is a joke. Now, he has notoriously been a Giants hater, hates the organization, former Washington alum. So he hates the Giants. So I get it. But he kind of has a valid point. In Hard Knocks, we saw that the proposition to Drew Lock was Daniel Jones is our starter. We're unsure if he's going to be healthy. If he gets hurt, you step in. There's a chance to be a starter. There's a chance to put together enough good tape so that you go on and get a bigger contract like Tyrod did with the Jets. That was the pitch to Drew Lock. And Drew Lock ate it up, signed with us, and now he's not getting to start. And it's like, yeah, Drew Lock looked pretty bad in the preseason, and he did not look great in his only appearance in the regular season against Philly in a blowout when the game was over. So in a limited amount that we've seen him, hasn't looked great. Then now I'm hearing reports that he was getting outplayed by Tommy DeVito throughout training camp. And in practice, he's getting outplayed. But that was your pick. You signed Drew Lock. Why did you sign Drew Lock? What happened from before we signed him to when we signed him? What's happening? How did he get worse? But now we're supposed to believe that, I know that Daboll was high on Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels, for the most part, has proven that he's a really good quarterback. Although there are some numbers supporting the fact that he is leveling off, and he's not maintaining the level of ability that he did in the first quarter to 6 games or whatever. So, I mean, the jury's like, it's not like a done deal that Jaden Daniels is going to be this great quarterback. Drake May, on the other hand, I think John Gruden is a big fan of Drake May. I think most people you ask, in evaluating him, think that he's a good quarterback, better than Daniel Jones. So again, I think there wasn't that consensus that Drake May. You didn't have that consensus. I don't think. I mean, you think, would Ernie Accorsi have pulled that deal? I mean, Ernie Accorsi was responsible for the Eli Manning trade. So he saw something, he believed in him. Again, I think it goes back to, you look at Daniel's time at Duke, it's like he was 17 and 19. You look at Eli's time at Ole Miss. I don't know what his record is, but I think one of the, I actually wrote about this for a blog I used to work for, but Ernie Corsi went to like a bowl game where they were down by 21 points and Eli led them back to a win. And it wasn't because of the guys around him. Obviously you need to have some semblance of skill to help out your quarterback, but like he wasn't getting a lot of protection and he would, drops, blah, blah, blah. There's things going against Eli, even then in Ole Miss, where he could overcome. Daniel Jones can't overcome. One of the other notes about Daniel was under pressure. His numbers under pressure, awful. His numbers outside the pocket were great his rookie season. They've gone to shit since then. What happened? It's like, how were you coaching him? What were you coaching him about? Like, was it too much? Were you overwhelmed? But to me, that is going to be my number one metric. What are your numbers under pressure? I don't know why this popped up, but in my head, I think about the last year's game against the Niners, right? Wink Martindale, known for blitzing, he blitzed a shit ton, and he blitzed even more against the Niners. And Brock Purdy, I think we blitzed like 80% of the time. Brock Purdy, you looked at his numbers when he's blitzed or under pressure, and when he wasn't pressured, and he was almost better under pressure, if not the same level as when he was not under pressure. So that has to be your top measurement stick, top metric to think about. Your top KPI, key performance indicator, is what are his numbers under pressure? So that's something that I plan to look at with this year's draft class. Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, and Jalen Monroe. Garrett Nussmeier, Dylan Gabriel, can't forget about them. So look at those numbers. What do they look like? Because that's got to be how we're gauging or projecting success, in terms of franchise quarterback. And I disagree. Essentially, I'm disagreeing with going to Tommy DeVito. I disagree with it. I think this is an you're going to do some evaluation. The evaluation you've done so far for Drew Lock has been like the Eagles game where no one played well, and preseason when he was playing with like backup offensive line that already sucks. I don't know, man. There were some clean pockets and there were some bad passes and there were some picks. I get it, but knowing that he would be the starter, running him that's why I said in the last episode, like, give him 3 games. You have 7 games left. Give him 3 games. These are 3 games that if he plays as good as Daniel or a little bit better than Daniel, we could win. And then you can say, okay, based on like, it's an like basically by doing this, they have fully admitted and confessed that Drew Lock, there's no plan for Drew Lock with the Giants in 2025. Already. And I guess it was the Eagles game that did it, because we haven't seen him in a game since then. That's what's so weird to me, is like, this can't be as simple as, Mark Schlereth was saying, this is why Giants free agents don't want to go to the Giants and sign with the Giants, because this is a clown show. Like, you went on Hard Knocks, you said, we're bringing in this guy, we're going to give him a chance to play and to start and blah, 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 and it'll lead to a bigger contract in the offseason. And if Daniel gets hurt during this season, he'll obviously go in, and then all of a sudden you bench Daniel Jones and he's not the starter. If you're a free agent, why would you want to come here? It's like they're just selling you a batch of bad goods, damaged goods, spoiled goods. Like, it's not a good look, man. That Hard Knocks was not a good look. It just keeps biting us in the ass over and over and over again for everyone to meme us to death. Everything we said, everything that was said in that fucking show has come back to bite us. Everything, so that my theory was like, all right, you give Drew a shot, and if he does play well and he wins you more games than Daniel, then you can at least go into 2025 with him as your backup or compete to be the starter. to bridge the gap to the next franchise quarterback successor. And instead, it's like, okay, he's not part of the equation. Daniel Jones is not part of the equation. And now we get to see, like, is Tommy DeVito going to be part of the equation? So it's very interesting that why all of a sudden is DeVito the starter? He was the third emergency quarterback who can only play if Locke and Jones both go down with injury and can't return to the game. That's the only time that he could play, and now he's the starter. From 3-1, Locke stays at 2, Jones goes 1-3. And there's been talk about how, like, Jones, they were saying, I don't know if it was Schneier or Duggan or someone was saying, like, Jones should not even suit up. Like, shouldn't even be in the facility. They should do what I guess the Raiders did with Derek Carr before he went to New Orleans, where it's like, there's no reason for you to be in the facility at all. Like, you're not going to ever play here again. It's like, oh, shit. It's a bit harsh. Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but now this regime is headed toward forcing a quarterback in the 2025 draft that doesn't feature any can't-miss prospects. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. I've said it before, I said it again, let's not repeat what happened in 2019. Right? We missed the boat in 2018 and to a certain degree 2017. We missed the boat in 2020, 2023, 2022. Like, we missed, could have. Let's not force it in 2025. Let's just not do that. DeVito, man. I mean, I guess I could say this. Carl Banks was saying, like, he looks better than he did last year, at least in practice. And from the limited they've seen him in practice, he looks better. And we all know how practice translates to games. We had a good practice, but we had a good practice. What are you defining as good practice? Because it's certainly not showing up on game day. So, I mean, I am interested to see how DeVito plays. I just would have liked to see Locke first. Like, we just set $5 million on fire, and we have less than $1 million in cap space. So it's like, you didn't wait. So wait, time out. Again, we go back to, like, we talked about how Shane thought he was going to be able to re-sign Barkley and McKinney. And if he didn't think that, why didn't we trade them? I mean, same with Tyrod. Like, was there any push to keep Tyrod? No. And then you didn't have faith in DeVito to be your backup quarterback, your QB2, even though he did lead a 3-game winning streak once against the Packers that were a playoff team. Like, I just, the ability to evaluate and assess, it's just, I don't think it's there. That's why I don't, like, buy into a lot of what Shane was saying. Like, you like the strategy and the process and all that shit heading in the right direction, but what is pointing towards that? What is pointing towards that? I'll quickly react to the Athletics article about the QB Betrayal Index. So this was introduced before the 2022 season. The Betrayal Index measures the degree to which quarterbacks overcome poor play by their own team's defenses and special teams, what they cannot control. It's the context needed to discuss quarterback win rates. So an extreme example would be Drew Brees won only 45% of his starts from 2014 to 2016, despite New Orleans ranking number 1 in a range of offensive categories. The Saints' historically bad defense and special teams betrayed Brees, resulting in the losing record. So if we look at this is why I think, in my eyes, I think Lamar Jackson has to be the MVP of the league. And I know people might point at, like, Jared Goff or something like that, but in terms of the Betrayal Index, he is the number 1 ranked quarterback, and his defense and special teams is ranked 32nd. So it's a -31 betrayal, which is the biggest in the league. Next up would be Joe Burrow, who's the ranked 5th quarterback. He has a QB ranking of 5, but his defense and special teams rank is 31. And then you have Baker Mayfield, 6th ranked quarterback, 29th ranked defense and special teams. Also of note, Jaden Daniels. And this is why I think some people You talk about Daniels versus May. May's on this list too, but he's actually got a pretty good defense and special teams. So Daniels is ranked this is after week 10 before week 11. So Jane Daniels ranked third. This is before the Thursday night game against the Eagles, where it looked like they were going to win for like a half, 3/4, and then the Eagles just poured it on the fourth. But Daniels, third ranked QB, 24th ranked defense and special teams. So, but then you go all the way down to Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, 27th ranked QB, and his defense and special teams is ranked 20th. So his defense, although still not great, right? Still not it's a below average defense, mostly because of the rush defense. Pass defense, top notch. But I believe that number also is deceptive, which we'll get to in the Bucs preview. But, Will Levis has a great defense. He's ranked 30th. Jacoby Brissett ranked 31st. Bo Nix has the 4th ranked defense, and now people are turning the corner on Bo Nix and saying, after that blowout win against the Falcons in Denver, where he throws for 3 or 4 touchdowns, they win like 38-10 or something like that. They're coming around on him and starting to think that he's the guy. And it's like, if you put Bo Nix on the Giants, we're not 5-5. I don't think. Now you put Daniel Jones on the Giants. I mean, you put Daniel Jones on the Broncos. Are they 5-5 or are they 7-3? And that's why there are some people saying, that's always the immediate, after he's benched, where does he go from here? What are the teams that he's most well suited for? And people were thinking that Denver would be a good place to go with Sean Payton. And I don't disagree. I think a large, it depends on how Bo Nix develops over the latter half of the season. If he continues to play like he did against Atlanta, it's like, yeah, maybe bringing Daniel worth a shot. But there were some people saying, oh, what if he goes to Philly? Backs up Jalen Hurts, and then obviously you just know that he's going to Hurts will go down and he'll come in and he'll just tear us up. At MetLife, which would be a double, triple kick in the Biznalls. And Deshaun Watson ranked 34th. His defense is ranked 7th. And then Caleb Williams has a 5th ranked defense and is 33rd offensively. So, but, you talk about again, Caleb Williams was the top quarterback in the draft. Bears were locked in on him from the get. There was just no chance that they weren't going to draft him. And one of those things where we talked about guys under pressure, where's their performance like? This is kind of a counter argument to that, because you look at what Caleb did at USC where he's scrambling around, avoiding the rush and finding the guy and winning the game. He's scrambling around the NFL, but it's either always someone, I forget who said it results in a negative play or a sack, turnover. It's just not translating. I tell you, I mean, the two guys that we have talked about, I don't think Malik Willis is on this. Is he? No, I don't think they have him because I don't think he met the minimums, because Malik Willis is a guy that I'm talking myself into more and more. But two guys that we might target in the offseason, Justin Fields and Sam Darnold. So Justin Fields went 4-2. He was the 15th ranked quarterback and got benched for Russell Wilson. And the Steelers have the best defense in the league. But still, it's not like he was Caleb Williams. 15th ranked. Where's Russell Wilson on this? Is Russell Wilson higher? He has to be, right? He's I don't think he's even on this. I don't see him. But yeah. So Justin Fields might be someone you look at. And then Sam Darnold, 17th ranked quarterback, 3rd ranked defense and special teams. So, hell, dude, sign them both. I mean, it's so wild that the Panthers at one point had Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. Somehow fucked that up. Somehow messed that up. Oh, like, and it's tough to point at the Panthers and laugh because we're like, we are the Panthers. We're the Panthers right now. Like there was so many years where we could point at other organizations and be like, well, at least we're not them. And it's like, no, actually we are them now. We're them. We're the worst of the worst. There was also a poll on Twitter. It was like, who's got it worse? The Giants, Jets, or Bears? And I'm like, and I ended up selecting the Jets. And it turns out that more people were voting for the Giants. And I'm like, what? You're out of your mind. Like the Jets, I guess you could say the Jets have the better roster. I guess. But like you just sunk so much money into fucking Aaron Rodgers, dude. You sunk a ton of money into Aaron Rodgers. And your head coach was fired. And now your general manager got fired. And it is 1,000% because of Aaron Rodgers. 1,000%. Because you gave him the keys of the kingdom to influence decisions, and you didn't want to upset the apple cart and go against them and try and stick to your own strategy. It was like Aaron Rodgers or bust, and you busted big time. So I think the Jets are in a worse position because it's like you're not going to bring Rodgers back. He's the shell of himself. He's not winning you games anymore. Case in point, they were down. They lost by one of the Broncos. They the game against the Colts. Colts scored late, so the Jets defense is not the Jets defense we were expecting this year. Like they just forgot how to tackle. And Rodgers needs a field goal to win. And he has enough. I mean, in the past, that's enough time for him to go down and get the field goal and win. And he just, nope, I am close. So the 34 quarterbacks have a combined 37 and 94 record this season in starts when their teams finished with negative combined EPA, that's expected points added on defense and special teams. That includes 0 and 55 for a group of 16 quarterbacks. It's difficult to win these games, but some quarterbacks, like Lamar Jackson, have been able to prevail anyway, and that's why he gets my vote for MVP. MVP. I mean, I see him doing shit. Just highlight real stuff when the game is close and they need him. I mean, the only game that he didn't come through on was the game against the Raiders. He's 5-3 when the defense and special teams has a negative EPA. Ooh, baby. Jaden Daniels is 3-2 when his defense and special teams have a negative EPA. It's tied for 7th. Kyler Murray is 3-3, tied for 7th when his defense and special teams has a negative EPA. So, who baby? So yeah, it's the QB betrayal index. So we can't, for everyone blaming the defense, it's like, he didn't have to overcome a bad defense per se. The defense was better than him. And maybe if he did overcome a bad defense, we wouldn't be benching him. So that's the QB betrayal index. I won't spend a ton of time on this, but I did spend a lot of time on this in preparation for this podcast, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it talking about it because it's more of a visual thing. But, going back to Joe Schoen's press conference about progress, improvement, like the direction we're heading, we're better in a lot of areas. That is partially true. So I looked at the team stats from this season through 10 games, the first 10 games of 2023 season and the first 10 games of the 2022 season. And if we look at how this year compared to last year, we have improved in just about every major team stat except turnovers, offensive turnovers, defense, so giveaways, takeaways, defensive rushing yards allowed, and special teams. Our special teams has been just a nightmare, just an absolute nightmare. So, are we better? this year than last year in most categories, in most areas? Yes, he wasn't lying about that. Problem is, you have the same record. You have the same record through 10 games. So, we're averaging around 16 points this year per game. We averaged 12 last year. Our defense is allowing 22 this year. They allowed 27 last year. We're getting more our offense is getting more first downs. We're throwing for more passing yards. We're rushing for more yardage this season, not by a whole lot. And but we are turning over the ball slightly more. In defense, we're allowing less first downs. We're allowing less total yards. We're allowing less passing yards, but we are allowing way more rushing yards. And we're not getting anywhere close to the turnovers we did last year. Interesting. We had 0 turnovers, 0 takeaways in the first 4 games of last year. And we have, there's 5 instances in the first 10 games where we had no takeaways. And there's 4 games where we didn't have any takeaways this season. So, the EPA on offense is better, but it's still in the negative. There's a 65% improvement, but it's still, you're in the negative. And the EPA on defense is better. And the EPA on special teams is worse. So we were in 11 last year. I mean, you remember like Gunnar also, we just had a lot of, the Niners game, we got a lot of points from special teams. The Bills game, Cowboys blowout. Just a lot, but we're not getting it from special teams. So I think that's not a surprise. That's not a shock. Like that's, how much improvement are we seeing? It's kind of in the 20 to 30% range. So if you get 20 to 30% better, is that the promise for next year? And does that mean like after the first 10 games next year, if we're have 20 to 30% more wins, that's 2 to 3 more wins, so that we're not 2-8, we're 4-6, or we're 5-5. If you're 4-6 and 5-5 through the first 10 games next season, is that considered improvement? Yes. I mean, I think that was the goal this year. It's like if we got to 4-6 or 5-5 this year, then that is like that would align with these team stat comparisons. We should be 4-6 or 5-5, but we're not. And yet we think it's the quarterback. And it's like, well, defensive rushing yards allowed, no takeaways, lots of giveaways. So the big question then is, how does 2024 compare versus 2022? Because if 2022 is like, okay, year 1 of the rebuild, quote unquote, and we go to the playoffs and win a playoff game, like, are we on pace with or in the same ballpark as 2022? Because if he really does want to play this whole, 1-5 and 1 score games argument that he's using, that Shane is using, then it would stand to reason that our numbers would be somewhat comparable to 2022, because in 2022, it's like we were not, for the first 10 games, we scored a total of 205 points. Our opponents scored a total of 204 points. So we averaged 21 points per game through the first 10 games. Opponents were averaging 20. So we can't act like 2022. We were just steamrolling opponents and we're just running them over. We were like, we got lucky. The opener, Saquon needs to score that 2-point conversion to give us the 1-point win. We win by 3 over a really bad Carolina Panthers team. Lose by 7 to, was that the game where Dak was injured? Or was it the next game? Lose by 7. You beat a fairly bad Bears team. You shocked the Packers, who ended up missing the playoffs anyway, in London. You shocked the Ravens, which that was a huge win. That was a big win. You hold off the Jaguars. That came very close to the Jaguars scoring and winning that game. I mean, they came up like a yard or two short of scoring the go-ahead touchdown. You lose by 14 to the Seahawks. You beat a bad Texans team, and you get wiped by an up-and-coming Lions team. So, the more and more we look back at 2022, it's like, oh, shit. And that's why, I put out that video where it's like, someone said 2015 was the downfall, start of the downfall. It's like, well, I think it kind of extends back beyond that. But 2022 is a very close second in terms of like, we did not capitalize on what we had. We just absolutely did not. And it was all because, and Shane is pointing towards, well, there was just so much turnover. There's so much roster turnover, which I also looked into. You're curious, but were we better than 2022 in most of the categories? No. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 categories, 16 metrics. We were better than 2022 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of 16. We are, believe it or not, we have a better defense in terms of giving up first downs. 4 fewer first downs allowed. 16. I think these are the averages, right? Yeah. So 17% fewer first downs than 2022. 5% less total yards. 13% less passing yards. But our rush defense, not as good. Our turnovers, takeaways, not as good. EPA on offense, not as good. EPA on defense, slightly better. EPA on special teams, slightly better. So, we're scoring 5 less points per game than we did, or 24%. Well, hold on. Yeah, 5 less points per game than we did in 2022. And our defense is giving up 2 more points per game than 2022. So there's a 7-point differential between what we were doing, our averages through 10 games in 2024 and our averages through 10 games in 2022. It's literally it's a touchdown. It's a touchdown. It's the equivalent of a touchdown. That's the difference. So it's not a huge difference. So I guess there's 2 ways you can say it. Well, there's not that huge a difference. We're not that far off in 2022 when we made the playoffs and won a playoff game. And it's like, no, I think I'm going to take the other view, which is 2022, we probably shouldn't have gone to the playoffs. And we ended up facing the best case scenario in the playoffs was facing the friggin' Vikings, dude, who, were able to pull off close 1-score games. I mean, how many 1-score games did they have during that regular season? So I think that the 2022 Vikings were a bit of a mirage. So yeah, that really fouled us up. And, after that 10th game, we've talked about it. After 7-3, you end up going 2-4-1. You beat the Commanders. Well, you tie the Commanders. Can't beat them on your home field, and then you barely beat them on the road when it was like there's probably should have been a penalty called, and they probably should, here and there, da-da-da. So fucking year, man. Listen, I still had fun watching that season. And I did, and I think, there are people posting like all the reactions we had to clinching the playoffs, winning the playoff game, like all the fans loving it and like sign this one, extend this one, blah, blah. Fuck. Anywho, in terms of the rosters, right? So that was the big one, was like the 2022 draft. Joe Schoen's first. He was saying roster turnover. We need players. We need players. We need to fill holes. It's like, so that's why he had 11 draft picks. And, 2022, we make the playoffs. And 34 players on that roster were Gettleman picks picked by Dave Gettleman. 44 were picked by Joe Schoen. 22 of those players picked by Gettleman were on the roster the next season when we went 6-11. Our top players by AV, top 4 players by AV, Gettleman guys. Daniel Jones, Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, Saquon Barkley. Jones obviously has been benched. Barkley not re-signed. Lawrence extended. Thomas extended. Injured, lost for the season. Kayvon was next up in AV. He was a Shane guy. Then you have Slayton, a Gettleman guy. Then you have Evan Neal is the next in AV, couldn't start in the first 9 games of the friggin' season. So, 2023 roster. 20 of the players, I think 20 or 22 of the players are still Gettleman guys. And then 52 players were drafted by Shane or signed by Shane. And of those players, 35 are still on the roster and 37 are not on the roster. So there were, after 56 of the players on the 2022 roster are no longer on the roster in 2024. 35 of the players from last year are on the 24 roster. 37 players from last year are not on the 2024 roster. So you look at the top performers in 2023. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So like half are Gettleman guys by approximate value. Dexter Lawrence, Gettleman guy. Kayvon, Micah, Bobby O, Shane guys. Barkley and McKinney, Gettleman guys. A'Shawn Robinson, signed by Shane, let him walk. And then Slayton's a Gettleman guy. Deontay Banks, Shane draft pick. Ben Bredesen, Adoree Jackson, Gettleman acquisitions. You didn't re-sign Saquon. You didn't re-sign Xavier. You didn't re-sign A'Shawn. You didn't re-sign Ben Bredesen. You didn't re-sign Adoree Jackson until late before the right before the 2024 season started. Tyrod Taylor not re-signed. Jahad Ward not re-signed. Tommy DeVito was your 3. Azeez Ojulari is your depth. Justin Pugh not re-signed. Wan'Dale Robinson is wide receiver 3. John Michael Schmitz is starting. Andrew Thomas starting. Darren Waller retired. It's just like, we're talking about top AV. So in 2024, only 2 of the 10. Well, there is no AV for 2024 yet, but I don't know, man. He traded for Isaiah Simmons. He hardly plays. Like, he signed Drew Lock. You can't even play him. You had no plan for Graham Gano, even though he's been banged up and injured for the past 2-3 seasons. You had to bring back Adoree Jackson. Like, Eric Gray was fumbling all over the place, so you had to bring in someone. I understand you're going to run into issues throughout the season, but it just feels like there's been a lot of bad decisions. So many bad decisions. So, the defensive line, especially, like, I know we talked about it last week, but like, you didn't address the defensive line. You addressed the offensive line. Like, I guess you could say the trade for Brian Burns is addressing the defensive line, but is it really? It's addressing the edge, which, because Azeez Ojulari had injury issues. Okay. That's one part of it, though. You've still failed. You put your faith in Raheem Nunez-Roche and Nacho. You put your faith in him. He has been pretty bad. 45.4 overall PFF grade. Elijah Chapman has played better, but I don't think we're going to see more of him. We talked about Jordan Riley, 54.8. Armon Watts, 61.3. TJ Davidson, 36.2. So yeah, I guess, Armon Watts and Elijah Chapman are your 2 front runners there. Maybe Armon will make more of a difference, but has he? Commanders are still ran wild on us. Panthers ran wild on us. Is it like our linebackers have regressed? Bobby O still has pretty high grades. And this is where I just get confused. It's like if the Micah has a decent grade, they're both in the green. They're not like elite, but they're good. So then what? So it's really just a matter of like that one defensive lineman is the reason for why our rushing defense sucks balls. I don't know. So that was the comparison 2024 versus 2023 versus 2022. I mean, it would be, I mean, in terms of how far like the improvement that we made, we talked about 2024 versus 2023. It was in the 20 to 30% better range. Mostly you look at like 2024 versus 2022 and it's just, yeah, we're about 10% worse, 10 to 20% worse than we were in 2022. Again, that's like a difference of 1 to 2 games. So we should be 6-4 or 5-5. We should be either 4-6 or 6-4 or 5-5. And we're 2-8. Is that really all on the quarterback? I guess it is. Right? It has nothing to do with the fact that we're allowing a ridiculous amount of yards on the ground. But I mean, you look at like the yards that we put up on the ground in 2022. Holy shit. We had 4 games where we rushed for 191 yards or more. We haven't done that once in 2024. 4 games. We put up more than 400, almost. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 games in 2022 in the first 10 games where we had 367 total yards or more. In 2024, we've had 2, and we didn't even win both. So, we've cracked. I don't know. It's funny though, like Steelers, 157 rushing yards against them. Commanders, 164 rushing yards against them. Panthers, 167 rushing yards against them. So I think you just got to continue to lean on Tracy in the running game, especially with DeVito. I don't know that you want to be throwing the ball a ton with him, but so I guess, yeah, we're not that far off from 2022. But what I'm saying is 2022, I don't even think we should have made the playoffs. I mean, literally, we lost to both the Seahawks and the Lions. So if we did not tie, it came down to those Commanders games. If we don't tie against the Commanders and if we don't beat them on like kind of a questionable call at the end, then like we're looking at not playoffs. And then you're saying to yourself, you're not pointing to 2022 and being like, well, that's the reason we should keep them. I mean, it's literally went to the playoffs and won a playoff game and this year's draft class. That's what you're saying. Most improved offensive line, which is literally not that hard to do. 32 to 16. It's like, do you think it's going to go from 16 to 1 next year? We're still, I don't know. We'll see. I guess that's the whole point. So with that done, Zoe, let's preview the Bucs game. Giants Bucs, week 12, coming off the bye. New quarterback starting for us, Tommy DeVito. I like to say DeVito fever. People say Tommy Cutlets. You make the call. This is a Sunday game, 1:00 at MetLife. The Buccaneers are favored by 5.5. Not enough of a spread, if you ask me. Over-under is 41.5. I think there are going to be a lot of points in this game, so I would take the over. I have not been right on any of my predictions, so don't listen to me. But I would take the over, and I would take the Bucs. 5.5? Yeah, for sure. We lead the all-time series 16-9. It's hard to believe that the last matchup was in 2021. It's been 3 years. Like there was. I mean, we played them every year for a 5-year stretch. Was it a 6-year stretch? We played them in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. We didn't play them in 2022 or 2023. So we lead the all-time series 16-9. We have lost 3 of the last 5. Of course, 2 of those losses came from Tom Brady. One of those games was close. The other one was not. It was actually the last game we played against Tampa right around this time in 2021, right before Thanksgiving. We lost 30-10. Andrew Thomas scored his touchdown. And that was when DJ supposedly, allegedly hurt his neck, yet still played in the Eagles game. But then after that, didn't play for the rest of the season. Okay, sure. So yeah, that game was, I think I remember that game being somewhat close. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, it was 17-10 at the half, and then they just took off in the second half. We tied it 10-10 about almost halfway through the second quarter, and then they ran away with it in the second half. How many first downs? 28 first downs for Tampa. 402 total yards to our 215. We were 1 of 9 on third down. They were 6 of 13. And they had 35 minutes of possession. So, yeah, I think they earned that one. I think they did. Yeah. Previous game before that, that's the one that we came so close to beating them. Tampa came in with a 6-2 record, and we were 1-7. We were 1-7 to start 2020 and almost went to the playoffs. Yeah, this was the Monday night game, early November at home. We were up 14-9 until 6 minutes in the third quarter. And then we had, we get down 25-17. Jones leads that ridiculous drive, throws the touchdown to Golden Tate, which Golden Tate was on Good Morning Football, and they were asking him about like Joe Judge, and he just like his facial expression said it all. Like he couldn't even bring himself to say anything about the guy. And then we go for the 2-point conversion, and I think what's his name was interfered with. There was defensive pass interference, and they didn't call it, and so we lost by 2 instead of tying it and possibly going overtime. There were only 28 seconds left, but Brady, who knows? So we had more first downs. We had more rushing yards, about equal passing yards, or total yards. We did have one more turnover, 7 penalties, about even on third down conversions, and time of possession was about even. God. Before that was 2019. That was Daniel Jones' first start where we won by 1. He had the Evan Engram 75-yard catch and run for a touchdown. Shep with the 2-point conversion. Shep with a 7-yard touchdown from Daniel. And then Daniel Jones with a 7-yard rush to put us ahead. And then, of course, the missed field goal at the end. But, Tampa pretty much outplayed us, outgained us in every facet. More first downs, more rushing yards, more passing yards, more total yards. They had less turnovers, less penalties, and more time of possession, but we had converted on more third downs. So probably should have lost that game in retrospect. And then before that was in 2018. This was an insane game. We were up 24-7 about halfway through the third quarter. And then it was just God forbid you took the under in this game, because it just we just started lighting up the scoreboard. I think it was like I think Fitzpatrick started, and then he got hurt and sucked. He threw 3 picks, had a 47.2 QB rating. Then Jameis comes in and goes 12-16 for 199 yards and 2 touchdowns for 129.9 rating. Ooh, baby. So we eventually won that 38-35. But, they had more first downs, more passing yards, less sacks. They had 510 total yards, but they turned the ball over 4 times. 3 of those from courtesy of Fitz. And they had more time of possession. So we allowed 4 sacks. And then before that was 2017. This was a game that really drove me wild. We lost by 2, 25-23. We were actually up 17-16 with about 4 minutes to play in the third. And then Nick Folk kicks the game winner as time expired. But fucking A, man. We had more first downs. They had more total yards, more rushing yards, more passing yards. No turnovers. We only had one penalty. They had 4. We were 8 of 17 on third down. They were 3 of 11, and we had more time of possession. Eli was 30 of 49, 288, 2 touchdowns. That's when we still had. I cannot believe, and that's 2017. But that you can have OBJ, Evan Engram, Sterling Shepard, Brandon Marshall, and lose. Only the Giants. So those were the last 5 matchups. Baker Mayfield. He has 3 more passing attempts than Daniel Jones, but he has 500 more passing yards and 16 more touchdowns than Daniel Jones. So it's like, yeah, maybe it is a football decision. Baker's 9th in passing yards, 8th in passing yards per game. He's tied for 8th in pass attempts, tied for 6th in pass attempts per game, which is just 0.3 above Daniel. He's 5th in passer rating, but he's not in the top 10 in QBR. Go fig. 4th in passes completed, 3rd in passing touchdowns, passes completed per game, and pass completion percentage and passing touchdown percentage. But he's also tied for 3rd in fumbles. So I hope you like strip sacks, because that should be the number 1 goal for the Giants pass rush. Swat that ball. Swat that ball. Chris Godwin's hurt, gone for the season, but he was their top leading receiver. He was tied for 9th in receiving touchdowns. And he still is tied for 9th in receiving touchdowns and 5th in receiving yards per game. Mike Evans is 4th. I think Mike Evans is coming back. I'm not sure when. Bucky Irving is tied for 7th in rushing yards per attempt. I expect him to have another big game against our rush defense, our piss poor rush defense. Chase McLaughlin, their kicker, is 4th in field goal percentage and 5th in extra points made. So they score a lot of points, and their kicker doesn't suck. Tyke Smith is tied for 4th in fumbles forced with 3. Levante David is tied for 7th in forced fumbles with 2. Zion McCollum is tied for 8th in passes defended. So we'll get to it, but their offense is, we talked about the QB betrayal index, and like Baker's like the 3rd ranked quarterback, and their defense is like low 20s, high 30s maybe. So he's making up for a very bad defense, which is very uncharacteristic of Tampa. We're 0-5 at home. Burn MetLife down to the ground, please. 0-5 at home. Bucs are 2-2 on the road. 6-4 versus the spread. We're 3-7. Like I said, we're dead last in points scored per game, but Tampa is 5th with 27.9 points scored per game. But they're also 27th in points allowed per game. 26.6 points allowed per game. We're 16th. So I don't know, man. I mean, we said this about the preview when we're previewing the Panthers game. The Panthers had like the worst defense in the league, and we couldn't even put up a 20 spot. We put up 17 total points. Tampa's broken even in terms of takeaway differential, which is about average. And we're -6, which is 27th in the league. And even though we're not turning over the ball not a ton of giveaways, we're just not taking the ball away at all. 0 interceptions since week 1. Bucs have the 10th most passing yards per game, whereas we allow the 4th fewest passing yards per game. So that'll be an interesting little matchup. See, like, okay, we are 26th in passing yards per game, and the Bucs are 30th in passing yards per game. So should we be able to see, we might be seeing a lot of aerial attacks going on, which is, I'm all for that. Buccaneers D has allowed the most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. So Tommy DeVito, what a time to be alive. Seize the moment, carpe diem. And the 5th most touchdowns to quarterbacks. They've allowed the 7th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers and the 4th most fantasy points per game to tight ends. So, I mean, I know we want to run the ball, right? But I do think this is a time to get let's throw the ball down the field. Throw the ball down the field, especially in the red zone. Throw it. Bucs are 10th in rushing yards per game. We are 14th, and the Bucs are 16th in rushing yards allowed per game, and we're 29th. So I have a feeling that the Bucs might lean towards the run, chew up some clock, keep their defense off the field, and maybe not pass as much as and that's why, even though we're 4th in passing yards allowed per game, it's because the teams know they don't have to pass. It's like, well, let's just run. There's much less risk with running, so we'll just hand the ball off and run it down their throats because they can't stop it, and then we won't have to throw. So I have a feeling that's why we're 4th in passing yards per game, allowed per game. I don't think this is the game where the defense really turns it around. I still think the Bucs put up a ton of points. I think minimum 28 points, 27 points, minimum 27 and 28 points for the Bucs. And then maybe we'll score 18 points. Maybe. So, yeah, I'm thinking 20 Bucs, 28. Let's say 31. Bucs 31. No, I'll say 28. Bucs 28. Giants 16. No, Giants 18. 28 to 18. Sounds about right. But friggin' DeVito. This Giants team. Oh, boy. Yeah, so I'll be going down to South Carolina for the break, Thanksgiving break, to visit family. So I most likely will not be doing a recap of the Buccaneers game, and most likely won't be doing a preview of the Thanksgiving Day game against the Cowboys. All I have to say is, you want people to start to get back on the bandwagon. Be nice to win against the Cowboys, even if they suck as much as they do. If you can't beat them when they're at their lowest, like, what's the point of playing? So I would think we would get a win there, but if we don't, it's like, okay. And then after that, so yeah, I'll probably, the next episode on the Giants, at least, will be recapping the Bucs game quickly, and then the Cowboys game, and then previewing, I guess, what we have, the Saints after that, which the Saints look like they've, like the new coach, new you. Interesting how that works. Interesting. Let me see here. Yeah, Saints are 4-7, 2-0 under Darren Rizzi. Interesting. All right. That's enough of that. I really did want Daniel to work out. I think everyone thought after that win in Minnesota in the playoffs, it was like, this is it. This is like we're launching into the next level. We're not looking back, and instead that was the pinnacle. That was the peak. We were there. And I guess, I don't know, we kind of enjoyed the view. And then quickly reminded the next week against the Eagles that no, we're not even close, dude. And I think if you even go back to that recap, I was like, man, we're not close. We are not close. But in that same breath, I said, but the Eagles after this season are going to decline. The Cowboys are going to decline, and we're going to improve. And I couldn't have been more wrong through most of the 2023 season. It's just wild to me that other fan bases want their coach to be fired, and their teams are winning, making the playoffs, winning playoff games, going to the Super Bowl, still want their coach fired. But yet we're holding on to our regime, even though we've lost so many games. But I guess, if I had up to me, they don't get a year 4, but because they made the playoffs the first year, they do get a pass. And because of this draft class, they do get a pass, and, they do get a year 4. Is Brian Daboll Jim Fossil? Doesn't really feel like it, but Jim Fossil had a way better defense. All right, that's the episode. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I'll talk to you next time. Adios, muchachos.